Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, Kent.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello, and welcome to Mary vs. the Movies with your host, Mary Jones.
Ho, 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 and Dennis Ling.
Is this the year you finally put on the red suit?
No.
Aw, I was hoping.
Do we have one?
Actually, we do. It was my father's in like the 70s and 80s.
That thing's gotta get washed.
Well, okay, it's been sitting in an attic for 30 years.
Looks pretty gray.
That's ermine,
All right.
I think. I have no idea. So this week, after the trials and tribulations of Ernest Saves Christmas, we're going to go a little more traditional in our fare with a TV movie from 1979. So, you know, I think it counts. It's not the first time we've done this.
Right.
An American Christmas Carol starring Henry Winkler, I guess Scrooge, set in the 1930s.
I believe it's also called A Christmas Carol Jumps the Shark.
I mean, he was on Happy Days at the time.
It's starting to get sad. It's started.
Have they brought in Ted McGinley yet? They may
no.
have. Yeah, I definitely Richie has left the show to go off and. I guess in the show he went in the army, but
I wonder if John Boy also left the Waltons around the same time.
oh, I don't know.
It just seemed like around that time all these shows were like transforming.
Yeah,
All at the same, like all these like nostalgic shows, like they were losing their big star, but they were still hanging on.
I mean, yes and no. In that Happy Days lost one of their two big stars because it really was like a twin situation on that show. Richie Cunningham, of course, Ron Howard, and the Fonz, Arthur Fonzarelli, played by Henry Winkler. And yeah, I mean, he stayed on till the end of the show, as far as I know, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, yeah. And so this would have been made while he was still on Happy Days. So, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting that they're like, we're going to not only have you play somebody who's definitely not the Fonz, you're going to play Scrooge. We caught the first 30 seconds on Pluto last year. And I said, you know, it was just enough to see what it was. It's a Christmas Carol set during the Great Depression with Henry Winkler, and I said, "Yeah, I gotta watch this for the show because this is like I'm still." He wasn't old. He wasn't old at the time. He was probably 30.
But like you could see how he could be grumpy even then.
Oh yeah, sure.
I mean, now definitely. Like you could easily cast Henry Winkler as.
Well, I mean, yes, you could. Although by all accounts, and I mean every account I've ever read, Henry Winkler is apparently the nicest man in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Everyone loves him. So
and the thing is, like, we like his post Fonz stuff.
Sure.
You know, like
wait. You're talking as if I didn't like Happy Days. Who doesn't love Happy Days? I mean, look, I'm not saying it's like watching The Wire, or The Sopranos, but come on, man.
I wasn't attacking your Happy Days fondness.
And I watched like all of the spin-offs, although I really did not like Johnny Loves Chachi. But obviously no one did.
Like I watched it because I had to, because it's part of the shared universe.
Did you watch a lot of Mork and Mindy?
Of course,
I watched all of. Mork
I
and
watched
Mindy.
that. I watched Laverne and Shirley.
Everybody watched Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah.
Come on.
I watched all of it.
So it's gonna be a little weird because, as you were saying, it's not like I've never seen Henry Winkler play a different type of character. You know, like that's not the issue. Obviously, Arrested Development.
I kind of like him in Scream as the principal.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I just think this is really strange casting, and in part because he just wasn't very old.
It feels a little bit like those early stretches that like stars have to break out of a role.
Sure.
Like Equus for
Daniel
Radcliffe and
wow, you went right to Equus, huh?
yeah, whatever Corvette Summer is for Mark Hamill. Anything, like he'll take any role that's nothing like the Fonz type of thing. Which you can respect.
Oh no, and you have to do that. You don't want to get pigeonholed. You don't want to get stuck. Because you brought up the Waltons, and what did Richard Thomas do? Once he left that.
I just know Law and Order.
Yeah, there was
like a a bad guy.
You leave a thing because you get big, and boy, you're taking a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So one reason I want to watch this is I love A Christmas Carol. I've watched so many versions of A Christmas Carol. See, here's the thing. One, I love Charles Dickens to begin with. I have like the whole 21 volume Oxford Illustrated edition. I'm working my way through them all. I just finished The Old Curiosity Shop this year. I've read David Copperfield and Great Expectations and A Tale of Two Cities, and yes, I've read like the Christmas books, and Christmas Carol is part of the Christmas books. This is one of those things that were just part of my childhood. Every year I would watch some version of A Christmas Carol, sometimes multiple versions. So I've seen Mickey's Christmas Carol many times, and I even have little figurines of Mickey's Christmas Carol that you gave me, and they're very cute. I've watched the George C. Scott version every year. I love that version so much. That's a Scrooge that'll beat the crap out of you.
Almost every sitcom for a while would do some kind of Scrooge thing. I'm sure there's a Gilligan's Island.
Well, that's the thing. Actually, I bet there is. That's the thing. When it comes to Christmas and television, for a long time, they don't do it as much anymore. But A Christmas Carol is definitely one of those templates that a lot of shows would go to. So you'll find like they'll do a version of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
They'll do a version of It's a Wonderful Life, which, to be fair, is kind of a rewrite of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
They'll do a version of The Nativity, where, hey, all of a sudden this pregnant couple show up and we have to help them. I literally just yesterday came across an episode of Newhart from I guess it's the first season where that happens, and there's no room in the inn because they run an inn in Vermont. So, but you find like the nativity story shows up a lot. And then I guess the other template is, we have to save Christmas somehow. Christmas is going to be bad, so we have to do something.
Yeah.
But yeah, Christmas Carol is one the TV shows come back to a lot. It's a story that just appeals to people because it's the idea that we can change ourselves, right? That we can be saved.
I also feel like there's not a lot in Western culture that just shows joy.
Yeah.
Like that day when he wakes up, he's pretty happy.
Yeah.
And there's just not a lot of just stories that just kind of focus on someone's happiness for, the last part or something.
Yeah, and I think that's why we get affected, or at least I get affected watching A Christmas Carol when he wakes up and he throws open the window and, oh my God, it's Christmas Day. And it's the same thing at the end of It's a Wonderful Life when, Zuzu's petals and he's running through Bedford Falls. It's the same sort of you get choked up watching it. There's something where they're able to nail the concept of joy, which of course is the whole idea behind Christmas.
Yeah, and it's definitely earned. It's this guy goes through the ringer, and it's like the whole story just kind of works that way. That's what it builds up to.
It's a perfect, and I don't want to even call it a secular vision of Christmas, because I do think these are both. I do think it's very much an outgrowth of the Christian concept of the nativity and the joy of the Savior coming and all of that stuff. But it personalizes it in a way that it becomes much easier for us to identify with, I think, especially in an increasingly secular world.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting that it is a story that ends in joy, and so often we don't have that, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Everything always ends on a somewhat grim note. It's or a little bit sour. And
but even happy endings, the happy ending happens during the credits or after the credits or something. It's everything works, and then it's done. And it's you don't really get to see the the post stuff. I mean, there are 80s movies that have that kind of thing, but
no, you're right. I think we've kind of lost a certain structural feature to storytelling in the last, 20 years or so. We need a denouement. Yeah. We need to see, okay, he wakes up on Christmas Day, and not only is he happy, then we get to see him go to Fred's house. We get to see him go to meet up with Cratchit. We get to hear, we get to see kind of the result of things are different. Things are going to be better.
Yeah.
And so often, nowadays things just kind of stop.
One more thing, ghosts. What do you think? What do you think the ghost will be? Think they'll be recognizable? Think there'll be some kind of American spin?
Oh, you know what? I think that's a very good question. So obviously usually in A Christmas Carol, Ghost of Christmas Past is this weird angel. Christmas Present is, like this Father
Santa
Christmas.
Claus.
Well,
Yeah.
he's kind of like Father Christmas, Santa Claus mixed with like a pagan god.
Yeah.
Which I mean, he's like the Dagda from Irish mythology. He's amazing. And then of course Christmas Future is always, the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
It's a good question. What are these ghosts going to be? I don't know. Because this is set in the Great Depression, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I think the Ghost of Christmas Past, boy, I don't know. Do you think it's going to be like some sort of Victorian waif since that's going to be his past?
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe like present would be like a W.C. Fields type.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely like kind of a big jolly dude. Like, W.C. Fields isn't jolly, but I know what you're saying with that.
Yeah.
And then, the Grim Reaper. Oh, boy, that's...
That'll probably just be the Grim Reaper.
Yeah, it probably will. But like, would there be like a 1930s spin on that? I don't know.
Do you think there'll be flappers?
Oh man, I hope we get like his youth is set at least sometime in the roaring 20s, because like I don't know how
Yeah.
deep into the depression this is supposed to be. So
That'd be fun.
I would like to see that. I don't know if they're gonna have Scrooge having gone through like the First World War or something. I do wonder like how much they're playing with time in this.
My old speakeasy. Hey.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I can see it.
I know you can see it. Well, shall we go find out?
Sure. What I gotta say?
What?
No joy.
There really wasn't. I've never watched a version of A Christmas Carol that felt less joyful.
His voice is a little elevated at the end, like, now I'm feeling better.
Right. Like Oscar the Grouch would be more joyful. I'm not going to say it's bad.
Nah.
It's a TV movie.
Yeah, it's definitely that.
The look is basically the same sort of production quality of, say, the Waltons.
Yeah.
In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they just used some of their props, although it was filmed in Canada, so probably not. But
Yeah. And they got Budget John Boy for
for the Cratchit character, yeah. So, is this my least favorite Scrooge of all time? I don't know, because I never saw the cartoon version with Jim Carrey. But this might be... And that actually isn't Henry Winkler's fault. That is entirely the fact that this character, I hate him.
So like Bill Murray's Scrooge was comically mean.
Yes.
Like-
Like that was funny mean. This is just, what is wrong with you, man?
I don't see him learning. Like it
No.
just didn't feel like he was, really facing up to his actions or anything. He was just sad. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I didn't like emotionally feel the horror at his own actions in the way that you usually feel from like a good performance of Scrooge.
Partly because they kind of try to keep away from like the supernatural in this.
Oh, yeah, way too much.
In fact, they say you're not, and that we're not ghosts now. That's storytale stuff. We're visitations.
It's like, oh, come on, man. Either like just embrace being a ghost story.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like, look, if you're doing A Christmas Carol, the whole point is that it's supernatural.
Yeah.
Do not shy away from that. Don't try to rationalize it. Don't try to like play that down. Look, just embrace what it is. Look, it's Christmas. Like, we're allowed to be ridiculous. We're allowed to have fantasy. This is the time of year when we need that stuff. The sun sets at 4:30 in the afternoon, man. Let me have some supernatural. Let me have ghosts. Let me have like spirits. Let me have Santa Claus, man.
Yeah.
Do not rationalize this stuff, man. Come on.
So let's first get into just why he's worse than Scrooge.
Oh my God. Well, do we start with the part where he's like tearing apart books? Or do we build up to that
No.
part?
We'll build up to that because first he takes someone's wood stove while it's burning.
No. Even before that.
Okay,
The very beginning of the movie.
Oh, this is with the kids?
Oh, with the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like some kids, I guess from the orphanage, are like kind of caroling and raising money, and they finally get to his office, and this is actually pretty funny because he plays it as like, yes, please come in and I want to, let me give you some advice and all this stuff. And so like, I want to contribute to your cause. And what he gives them is just business cards with like motivational sayings printed on them. And that's all he gives them. No money.
Well, it's to show them they can pick themselves up by their bootstraps.
Yeah,
that type of
exactly.
thing.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's like he may as well have been like giving them NFTs at this point. But I thought that was very funny because the whole idea is like it's called An American Christmas Carol. So he is very American because instead of just being a jerk to these kids, which is what an Englishman would do, he pretends that what he's doing is actually helping them and this is good for them. And he's a good guy because he's giving them motivational sayings so that they can go out and make their own way. Instead of actually giving them material help that they need right now, it's sort of like, hey, here's some slogans to motivate you.
The thing is, he's never anti-Christmas in this.
No.
He says Merry Christmas. Like, he never just says, like...
Well, because he knows you got to play the game in order to keep the money coming in.
Yeah.
That's what I find fascinating. Like, the difference between English and American culture is America, we always kind of feel like you got to keep a game going.
Yeah.
In England, I have a feeling like they have a different game going. Like they have their own, they do have a game going, but it's a different one. Like over there, you're allowed to be kind of nasty. Over here, you're always supposed to be smiling.
Yeah.
The fact that he's smiling here while stabbing them in the back, that's very American. At least in the original, Scrooge is just indifferent to people. He doesn't care about Christmas, but he's just indifferent to people's suffering. And he's just like, why are you begging me for money? I'm not giving it to charity. Get away from me. In this, he's a landlord. He owns everything. People have to pay him rent. He sells things to people on credit. And when they can't pay up because it's the Great Depression, he just repossesses things because he's going to sell them on to other people. Like, he's worse than Scrooge.
He really is.
Because he's exploiting the system. Like, Scrooge at least just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like, he's not great, but at least he's not going out of his way to ruin somebody's day all the time. And this guy is just like, oh, you missed a payment. I'm taking all of your stuff.
Yeah.
Like, part of the opening of this movie is him and his clerk, Thatcher, who is our Cratchit stand-in. They're going around to all of his different tenants. Like, they're tenants, but they're also, like, buying from him on credit. So I guess he also runs like the town store or something. They're going and repossessing all of their stuff. So it's things like a radio, a wood stove that still has a fire in it. They picked that. First of all, no, like, look, everybody's bills are going up. So my mom's been using the wood stove at her house to heat the house during the day instead of like, running the heat normally. And like, I'm a little worried about that because that's a lot of fire. Yeah. So like, I kind of wish she wouldn't do that, but fine, whatever. But the point is, like, that's hot. You're not going to pick up a wood stove.
No.
It's like a cartoon. And they're like, because there's smoke coming out of it. And they're repossessing a stove. And I'm looking at this and thinking, nobody's going to do that.
No.
Come on, man. But what's interesting to me there is just like how divorced was the 1970s into 1980 that like people are like, yeah, fine. Like you would just pick up the wood stove and take it out with him. It's like, come on, man. That's Bugs Bunny logic. So he's going around and just like taking people's possessions on Christmas Eve. That's worse than Scrooge.
Yeah.
And then when Thatcher, the Cratchit stand-in, says, hey, man, this kind of sucks, he fires him. Scrooge never fired Cratchit.
No.
He was just kind of like, yeah, okay, fine, you get like Christmas Day off, but I ain't paying you. That's mean. In America, that's also normal, actually,
This is when he suggests he opens up the quarry again.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So part of the idea is, because this takes place in December of 1933. Which 33 is like kind of one of the worst years of the Depression. The New Deal had been passed, but, its effects hadn't really kind of filtered into the economy. People were still there were still bank runs and all kinds of stuff going on. So the quarry in town, this is all set in like New England, in New Hampshire. And the town quarry has been closed because, whatever, business fails and all that stuff. Again, it's the Great Depression. I think that kind of explains it. So Thatcher is just kind of like, look, you're repossessing all these things from, your tenants and whatnot. And the reason is because nobody has any money because the town quarry closed. Why don't you just reopen it? And he's like, it won't make me money.
Yeah.
And it's like, first of all, like,
Sam Wainwright.
Yeah.
We have an old mill right here. We could just open it up, You could
Exactly.
buy that for a song.
right. And what does Sam Wainwright do? He opens it up and they start making plastics. So
Yeah.
I'll give you this. Sam Wainwright, better than this guy.
He was.
Better than Scrooge.
Hee-haw.
Actually, Sam Wainwright, way better than Scrooge.
Yeah.
He actually ends up being like a hero at the end of that movie. Like, yeah, he's a jerk, but he is a jerk with money who's willing to spread it around.
Yeah, he extends a line of credit worth $25,000, right?
I do worry that it's a lot. No, I don't even know if it's credit. I think he just gives him the $25,000.
I thought it was a line of credit. I don't know.
The point being, he's still better than this guy.
Exactly.
So, yeah, he's going around repossessing things. When Thatcher says, well, why don't you just, like, kind of employ people so that they can pay you back? I mean, let's kind of have an economy here. He fires him,
Yeah.
which, I got to say, seems like an extreme reaction.
Yeah.
And again, even Scrooge doesn't do that.
And can you imagine, buying this company and then as soon as someone disagrees with you, just fire them? Like, only a monster would do that.
Is Twitter still up as we are recording? I don't know. Should we check?
Well, we'll see by the time this goes out.
Yeah, it is funny watching something like A Christmas Carol of various iterations and just being like, I can think of somebody who needs to be visited by some ghosts. Thatcher, who's been fired, of course, he has a wife and 2 kids, and one of his children is Jonathan. But I kind of like how instead of Tiny Tim just having sort of a whatever disease, we don't know what it is, in this it's polio, which actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That was kind of a smart update. And that actually becomes really relevant to the ending of the movie. Let's see, they go to the orphanage.
Yeah.
And they repossess their piano. Like, come on, man. Like, you have got to be so petty to repossess a piano. Like, moving a piano is really difficult. There's a reason why people would call piano movers. It is not an easy thing to do. You have got to be full of so much spite to move a piano. Because we've done it. We've moved a piano.
Yeah.
We found a piano on the street last year, and we moved it first to our garage, and then we had to rent a truck and get it to my mother's house. And it is not easy. Finally, he goes to the town bookstore, and because the guy isn't selling tchotchkes like he wants him to, essentially, how Barnes & Noble is overrun with Legos
yeah.
and toys and stuff. And God, I used to work for Barnes & Noble, and I liked working there. I really did. But that was 20 years ago when it was all books, and now it's a third toys, and I hate
And
it.
this movie is from 79, and it's about 1933, and already they're trying to do tchotchkes and stuff.
Oh, I'm so mad watching that.
Yeah.
So because the guy's not selling tchotchkes, he's just selling books. And this guy, our Scrooge stand-in, is yeah, these books ain't worth nothing. Strip them and take the leather. We can boil it down and sell it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
They're stripping. Look, I'm not saying that books are sacred objects, but when you're the only bookstore in town?
You're not saying that?
Well, okay. Look. I mean, a little bit.
Yeah.
But the idea that the books are worth more if I just strip them for parts. Oh, that broke my heart.
It felt very modern.
So of course this follows the pattern of A Christmas Carol, where he's hanging out in his warehouse where he lives. Apparently, his old partner, who taught him all his dirty tricks, shows up in the Jacob Marley role. Of course, it's kind of you can't possibly be real, and and I have to say this is a really low-key Jacob Marley guy. I've watched a lot of Christmas carols, and normally Jacob Marley is terrifying.
Yeah.
The mouth hangs down,
Yeah,
and
it's
he's carrying around chains. This is just a dude in a fedora and a trench coat. And he's just yeah, I'm in hell now.
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of funny how low-key he is about it, but it's just really, that's it? You're just yeah, I'm in hell. It sucks. Of course, our Scrooge stand-in is just yeah, that wasn't real. And he goes to fall asleep at night, and this is kind of fun. His whole thing is he takes the radio that he took from his tenants.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God. So not only does he repossess these items, but he uses them.
Right.
At one point we see him drinking with other people's dishware.
Crystal.
Yeah. It's just oh, you're such a jerk. You're so
He
awful.
really is.
You get the sense that he just repossesses things because he can and because he wants the stuff.
Yeah.
It's not even about the money. It's about making people feel terrible. So he's listening to the radio as he's laying in bed on Christmas Eve and does not care. All of a sudden, the radio starts playing like news bulletins, like going backwards, which is kind of a fun detail. So like all of a sudden, like the radio is talking about how there's been a stock market crash, and it turns out like they're describing like 1929.
And at first he's like, another one, and then it says it's President Herbert Hoover. He's like, it's not Hoover anymore. And then
and he's like, no, it's Roosevelt, unfortunately. And I kind of and this is interesting because it's like how this was made in like the late 70s. Roosevelt is still sort of like held up as one of the good ones. This is not the Reagan era at all. The radio then dials back a little further, and they're talking about like Lindbergh, and then all of a sudden, like, you can't go much further than Lindbergh, and all of a sudden you don't have radio anymore. So at which point the Ghost of Christmas Past shows up, and what we get is the bookseller.
Right.
Okay, so like all of the ghosts end up being the people that he basically repossessed on. So the first one is the bookseller. We get the usual Scrooge story where now it's being set in like the late 1800s into the early 20th century, like up through, I guess, the First World War. And we finally get to see Henry Winkler not in terrifying old man makeup. It's just regular Henry Winkler. He doesn't look like the Fonz. It is kind of fun to see him that way, where it just looks like him and it's like his normal voice. So I'm not thinking about like the Fonz per se as I'm watching him.
And so in this one, he's an orphan, and he's basically adopted by Fezziwig.
As like an apprentice, but, very much like you're part of our family type thing.
Yeah.
And he falls in love with what's essentially like the Fezziwig figure's daughter. But his whole thing is the future's coming, everything's got to be automated. And our Fezziwig guy is like, no, we're craftsmen, we build furniture, but, I employ all these people and, they're our family. And
his Christmas gift is a chair from a competitor who they made it on an assembly line, and it's like just got glue and nails instead of pegs and stuff.
Instead of craftsmanship?
Yeah.
Yeah. And his whole thing is just like, look, people, they'll pay, it'll be less expensive. People will pay for these and nobody's going to know the difference. And let me tell you something. We absolutely will know the difference because do you know how often I got to repair chairs around our house that are made this way? This is crap furniture. This is IKEA. Can I afford it? Sure. But it falls apart constantly. And thank goodness Dennis over here is a woodworker so that we can get things fixed all the time and have to buy new stuff. I am not a fan of... Look, I'm a Luddite. I think we all know that. I don't like automation. I like things that are handmade. I'm a crank. I get it.
I'm not adverse to power tools.
Oh, no, power tools are fine. Yeah. But just being like, we'll just glue everything together and like, put it on an assembly line. It's like, man.
I'm more than happy to use a power drill that rather
I'm
than
not
like a whirly.
Look, I'm not saying we shouldn't have electricity. I'm just saying let's bring back a little craftsmanship.
You gotta cheat a little bit when you don't have a lot of time.
But yeah, so basically he has a falling out with this family. He was obviously being groomed to take over the business. He was going to marry the boss's daughter. Like, the whole idea is just like, hey, I've apprenticed you, and, I'm trying to instill you with, like, values of, like, liking people and, caring about things and, like, having a sense of craftsmanship. And, he's just like, no, I want machines and money. So he, I guess, goes away at some point and starts making his fortune with the Jacob Marley figure. And they come back during, like, kind of the end of the First World War. They're raising war bonds back in the town. And he kind of shows off that he's got a lot of money. So he gives, like, $850 to the war bond.
They were trying to get to $25,000, which is an insane amount of money.
Right. It turns out in, like, modern, like, as of last year, because obviously inflation's gone even further, so who knows. But as of last year, $25,000 in, like, 1918 is, like, $500,000 now. Yeah. And nobody's going to do a $500,000 war bond drive in some village in New England. But he shows up and he's just like, bam, here's money. I'm rich now. He tries to reconnect with the daughter and they go back to the old factory, which is like the Fezziwig factory. Essentially, they interrupt a guy who's working there overtime. And because they interrupt him, the place accidentally burns down because he had put down his cigar. To be fair, this is the worker's fault. You shouldn't... Well, who is smoking in a wood shop? I mean, come on, man. This is like rule number 1. So, like, this is not his fault. But what is his fault is that him and the Jacob Marley guy are like, oh, well, you burned down... the factory burned down.
You didn't have insurance.
You didn't have insurance. We're going to buy everything out from under you. And the thing is, they don't even turn it into a new factory. They just, I don't know, like collateralize the debt or something. It's terrible. Like, whatever they do, they make money off of him and drive him out of business and basically cause him to have a heart attack and die.
Yeah.
They kill this man.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It is.
Like, again, this is worse than Scrooge.
It really is. Now, now we're about like almost 2/3 of the way through the film by now.
Yeah, the pacing on this movie is really weird.
It really just stays in the past.
They spend a lot of time, and I think the reason they spend a lot of time in like the kind of late 19th, early 20th century is because it's Henry Winkler, and so they're trying to not keep him in that makeup the whole time. So they do put a lot of this movie in that one time period.
Yeah.
It's so badly paced in terms of storytelling. It's very weird. Of course, he wakes up and it's the present, and the ghost of Christmas Present shows up, and it's the guy who runs the orphanage where he repossessed the piano.
And the orphans.
And all the orphans. Now, let me tell you something. That's creepy. You wake up in the middle of the night and your house is suddenly full of orphans singing God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen at you. Yeah, now I am actually scared. Yeah, I mean, normally I love Christmas Present. Like the ghost of Christmas Present, like I said, he's basically, this Falstaffian figure, clothed in a green cloak, and, there's food everywhere. And here it's just basically this dude who runs an orphanage. And I mean, he's okay, but, it's not really the same vibe. That whole section is just focused on what Thatcher, our Cratchit stand-in, is going through.
Thatcher and his lady. Remember, like, she's still alive. Helen, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we get 2 minutes of her and the fact that she has a daughter.
And then they drop it. She's not part of the future.
Yeah,
he doesn't visit her or anything.
No.
I was like, this feels just kind of off.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, oh, by the way, she's still alive and she has a daughter, and
her daughter looks exactly like her because she's played by the same actress.
And the thing is, in A Christmas Carol, like, we do get, what Scrooge's lost, love is doing, but
I thought she died. Oh no, his sister.
It's
died.
his sister who
Right.
dies.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, here's the thing. There's no nephew Fred in this.
Right.
Right. Like, there's a whole. This movie is an hour and 40 minutes. Okay. The George C. Scott version is also an hour and 40 minutes, and that gets the entire text in, whereas this does not.
Yeah.
This is not as good. But yeah, so we get basically the story of his employee Thatcher, and their son has polio, and he's
what's his son's called?
Jonathan.
No.
Well, we're not there yet.
They said it at this time too.
Oh, I thought we didn't hear it. We didn't hear it until they go to his grave.
No, they say it.
Oh my god. Yeah. So here's how because we're not calling him Tiny Tim. No, his name is Jonathan. Okay. What Thatcher refers to his son as is my little Mr. T.
Yep.
That plays a little weird.
Yeah.
It's very strange to see this little blonde-haired boy referred to as my little Mr. T.
Now, Mr. T, I don't know if he was around. I only remember him from Rocky 3.
Yeah, Rocky 3 and then the A-Team.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened before Rocky 3. It just suddenly here's this guy with a mohawk and chains, but
yeah. But here he is. Here is a child being referred to as my little Mr. T, and it's very weird. This kid's got polio, and because you fired his dad, this kid's gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like the
they need
standard
$128 to get him to Australia,
where he's gonna get treatment for polio. Now, this is actually based on a real thing. What they want to do is go to see this Australian nurse called Sister Kenny, who did have a therapy for people with polio. As far as I know, it did help.
You had to get it right away.
Yeah.
And in America, they just studied her methods and would do it here. But
yeah, I know. So
so it's
come on, man. It's a movie. Are you really? This is the part you're going to argue with.
I'm just saying this movie is wrong.
But
I liked the movie until that point.
Oh yeah,
and then
that's.
I was like, oh, I don't like that. That's not how it worked.
But the Sister Kenny thing, that is a real thing. I just found it an interesting sort of detail that they throw in.
Yeah.
My mother told me about Sister Kenny. But then we get to Christmas Future. This was made in 1979, but it's set in 1933. So Slade is laying in bed. Radio is on, and all of a sudden the radio, first thing you hear is a news bulletin about how there's a polio vaccine, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we're doing Christmas Future. Okay, That's interesting. And then the next thing you know, they're playing some sort of weird kind of generic rock music.
Yep.
And then Christmas Future shows up. Christmas Future is our tenant from earlier. Well, let's see. He is in a black suit with a white shirt buttoned down to about his navel.
Yeah.
And he's wearing a couple gold medallions and a gold chain. I mean, basically, it's the ghost of Studio 54.
Or maybe one of the Warriors.
Like, the Ghost of Christmas Future is a disco king. I kind of respect that they did this. It is very weird. It feels very out of place.
Extremely weird.
But
and
I
very
like
weird
it.
in New Hampshire.
It is such a weird turn that this thing takes. And like, I wish they had gone further with it, because then like the rest of Christmas Future is like, oh, it's like 1935 and they're selling off his furniture and burning his portrait, and like, you know, Tiny Tim or Jonathan Mr. T is dead. Like, I wish they had gone further with like the disco stuff. I wish they had really got like, that was such a clever and strange thing to do, and they kind of drop it.
Well, it's just weird that like, why is he from so far in the future when...
Because this was made on television in 1979. That's the only reason. Like, look, come on, man.
You know, they should have had a Cylon.
Oh.
Are you the Ghost of Christmas Future? Wow, wow.
His revelation that, you know, oh, this is like me and I'm dead and I have an untended grave. It's just not like that emotional. It's not that interesting.
The thing that got me is that they're selling all his stuff for like way cheap. The thing is, yeah, all that stuff is cheap now. Nobody wants that stuff.
Yeah, it is really funny, isn't it?
Yeah, piano. Yeah, we just picked one up. They were just trying to get rid of it.
I know, like picked it off the street. You know, like you want to get like a nice like old wooden headboard. It is not hard.
No.
You know, like you can go on Facebook Marketplace and pick stuff up for like $10. It is so easy. It is really funny. He's just like, this is good quality stuff, and they're just like buying it for like pennies on the dollar. I'm like, man, you don't know. You have no idea.
Man.
Like nobody cares anymore. I do like that somebody buys his portrait for $100 and then burns it. Again, this is an impressive level of spite. This is an entire town that seems to run on spite. Whether it's him taking the piano from orphans on Christmas Eve or people buying his portrait for a very high amount and then just burning it. Like this is pretty much what I expect of New England, to be honest. Like it's a very spiteful place, you know, like they're very flinty, right? He wakes up and, oh my gosh, it's Christmas Day, I'm not dead. But like, again, it just doesn't have the emotional oomph that you usually get. I don't know. There's just something lacking in this. And I mean, part of it is once Winkler has to go back to being an old man, he just kind of stays an old man. And he's just kind of like shuffling along. Like he's not emotionally like overwhelmed in the way that I've seen other people do it. He's not Alastair Sims. He's not even like Scrooge McDuck.
He doesn't smile.
No. The makeup's not letting him smile.
True.
Let's be honest, you know?
Oh, by the way, the makeup is by Rick Baker.
Yeah.
Who did American Werewolf in a year from now.
Yeah.
So he should know better.
The thing is, it probably looked fine on television.
Yeah, on a tube, you know,
Yeah.
cathode ray tube. But you know, who could tell?
Like watching it on a modern TV, it's just like, oh no, this looks like Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure back then it looked fine. Like here's the thing: you go back and watch Mickey's Christmas Carol,
Yeah.
and when Scrooge is like coming to his grave, and it's just an open grave, and the fires of hell are coming up, and he's terrified. It hits me so much more on an emotional level than this.
You gotta see the Albert Finney version.
I do.
It's scary, that part.
It should be scary.
Yeah.
You know, this is a man confronting his mortality, and not just his mortality, but his immortality in hell, right?
Yeah.
Because he is a cruel and indifferent person.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole thing about A Christmas Carol is not just that the whole point is that like he's indifferent to other people's suffering, right? Which in some ways, you know, this guy's worse. This guy's worse. He actually causes people suffering on purpose. And he never really gets the comeuppance that you want.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, when he wakes up on Christmas Day, like, the emotion just isn't there because it's just not earned. Like, I never get the sense that he actually feels bad for the way that he's lived his life. You know? That he actually, you know, realizes... Because, like, part of it is if you go back... Like him and his partner come up with a scheme of what they call about what they go pay for time or something like that.
Yeah.
And the idea is basically like we're going to trap people in a system of like credit. Yeah. And when you can't pay it off, we'll repossess your stuff and sell it off to another person so that we can kind of like make double profits by like just immiserating everyone. He's worse than Scrooge. Okay.
Yes.
He's going to burn in hell, right? We never get the sense that he actually feels it.
No.
Yeah. It just does not work.
I gotta say, this might be better than the Muppet
Oh man, people are gonna come for you, man.
John Denver thing.
Oh, John Denver. Okay.
No, I'm not saying Muppet movies or anything.
I thought you were gonna go for the Muppet
No,
Christmas Carol because
definitely not.
yeah, Knives Out on that, man. You're dead.
No.
You're wrong there.
That definitely
Yes.
is not the case. No. But for the Muppet John Denver special,
Yeah, as far as
that was like, I don't know. There's something lacking with that thing.
yeah,
And this I felt was a little more complete. I mean, it's not great.
it is better constructed than that.
Really, honestly, the only reason to watch this
Yeah.
is to just watch Henry Winkler suffer in this makeup. It's the only interesting thing about it, but it is kind of interesting. I kind of like watching him act like that.
Yeah.
It's not great acting, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's like fun seeing someone have to suffer through. He does look better than Skeletor, so.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, come on, man. And then yeah, that's the end of the movie. Like he shows up at Thatcher's house and just like, yeah, here's a turkey, and by the way, here's a all expenses paid trip to Australia so your kid can get therapy, which, as Dennis pointed out, wouldn't actually work. And he goes to the orphanage and brings back the piano and is gonna have dinner there, and then he adopts a boy and is like, yep, you're gonna be my apprentice. And yeah, that whole scene would not have flown today the way it plays out here, because just kind of like, I want that boy. And it's just like, oh no. Oh, you couldn't do that now. Yeah.
And he recreates like his meeting with the Fezziwig guy.
Yeah.
And I
don't know. It just doesn't work.
Everything feels flat. He's buying all this stuff on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Where's
How's
he
that?
getting this stuff?
Right. Everything's closed, man. What are you talking
He's
about?
buying tickets, like for to go to Australia and.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you go and watch A Christmas Carol, right? The markets weren't closed on Christmas Day. The way that Christmas worked, in 1843 or whatever, was a little different from now, where, yeah, it was a holiday and like some people got the day off, but a lot, sometimes the stores were still open. I mean, it's kind of like how, nowadays Thanksgiving, grocery stores are still open on Thanksgiving until like 4:00, and, things will be open during the day. So like the same thing, Christmas Day, it made more sense that Scrooge could go out and buy a turkey, and he could have gone and bought all these things and brought them over, because you didn't have people like having the whole day off, especially if you were a merchant. America in like the 1930s, you might have actually been closed on Christmas Day. So it is a little weird that he's able to go out and buy stuff. Like, it may not have worked the same way.
But like bus tickets, across the country, where is he getting these?
The sentiment's nice.
Yeah.
Even though, as you pointed out, they're a little late on the therapy even. So like, it's kind of a wasted trip to Australia.
Have yourself a merry, merry Christmas. Have yourself a good time. But remember the kids who got nothing while you're drinking down your wine.
So that was An American Christmas Carol starring Henry Winkler, and I gotta be honest, a bunch of people I've never heard of, and you probably haven't either.
Yeah.
And directed by a guy named Eric Till, who yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at his IMDb, and boy, there's just nothing on here that I guess the movie Luther. About Martin Luther, but that's about it. That's the only thing I've ever heard of. Yeah,
I think it's just a lot of TV guys.
it is. It's a lot of it is nothing but TV guys. Yeah. Well, you can. I don't know. It's all kind of underwhelming. It sounds terrible, but it's underwhelming.
So
this is the socks of Christmas presents under the tree.
So I said it was worse. I think it's kind of worse than the Muppet special we saw, but
Yeah.
not as good as the Smoky Mountain Christmas.
Oh my God, no!
No, that was fun.
Smoky Mountain Christmas. First of all, I will watch that again.
Yeah.
And also, that has people in it that I recognized.
Right.
And I don't know, like that has a certain effervescent joy to it that like this is completely lacking.
So
in.
TV movies don't have to be that bad.
No.
This one was.
This one was just not good. But that's the thing. Okay, just I know we're wrapping it up, but Smoky Mountain Christmas is fun.
Yeah.
I've brought it up several times, but the 1984 George C. Scott version of A Christmas Carol, directed by Clive Donner, it looks like a film.
Yeah.
Okay. It lifts the text. It's very faithful to Charles Dickens' text. It's full of great actors. It's not just George C. Scott, but it's like David Warner and oh God, what's his name? The Equalizer. Edward Woodward. Like, it's all famous English actors for the most part.
Yeah.
Like that is a great movie. If you want to watch a version of A Christmas Carol, like obviously, the Muppets. That's wonderful. And yes, I agree. And actually, that is extremely close to like that might lift the most from Charles Dickens. But the George C. Scott version from '84 it looks like a movie. It just happened to be on television. This looks like crap.
There's also a version, it might be on YouTube, where they combine like 200 and some versions. Like they just take like scenes from different versions and like they paste it all together and it sort of makes sense.
Yeah, that was very interesting actually.
Yeah.
But like our point being, like, just because it's a TV movie doesn't mean it has to be boring or look bad.
Yeah.
So you can follow us on social media. We are Merry VS Movies on Twitter. We are Merry VS Movies on Mastodon. I think it's like Merry VS Movies at mas.to. Yeah, Mastodon. I don't know. I'm still like trying to get a handle on it, but yeah, I don't know. And we're
working on Hive.
Yeah, Hive. Boy, that's been down for days. I don't know.
It was back up today.
Yeah, but nobody's been posting, so I don't know what's happening with Hive. So, let's see. We're on Tumblr, but I have to start really using it, and I will start using that. But we're on Tumblr as Merry VS Movies. No, I'm sorry, Merry versus the Movies. Right. And we are on Instagram as Merry VS Movies. So go and follow us on any of those places. We also have a Patreon where you can help support the show. We are patreon.com/MerryVSMovies, where for $3 a month you can sign up and we will send you stickers and buttons. But starting in January, you will have access to our new Patreon-only podcast, Hollywood Avalon, where we are looking at movies of an Arthurian bent, subject, whatever. And the first movie we're going to cover is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which is one of my favorite movies. So I'm very excited to start Hollywood Avalon. We are available on all of the major platforms. We are on Apple Podcasts, where you can rate and review us. So please, please, please go and rate and review us, because that means more people will find us on that platform, and that will help us. Let's see. We are on
algorithms.
Yeah, algorithms, baby. We are all subject to them. We are on Stitcher and Spotify and Google Play, and you can go and get our RSS feed from Libsyn and put it into whatever your podcatcher of choice is. Next week, I think we're going to watch that Pee Wee Herman Christmas special from, like 89? That I've actually never seen. Yeah, so I guess it was Tavy was talking about it on Twitter, and I said, yeah, I've never seen this, so let's do it. I can't wait to revisit Pee Wee. It sounds like it's going to be a blast. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's something we need after.
I'm surprised you hadn't seen it, actually.
I don't know how I missed it.
You watched the show.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how I missed this, unless my mother was just like, yeah, I'm not going to sit through a primetime Pee Wee special.
Or you saw it and you'll remember it while we're watching.
That's entirely possible.
Yeah.
But it would mean I have not seen it since 1989.
Yeah.
Which is also very possible. But
we may be breaking the rules.
Well, if we are, it's unintentional.
Okay.
So yeah, next week will be the Pee Wee Christmas special. So I'm excited for that. Well, until next time.
Yep, that's me. I always moved in when the moment was good. You could always smell a good business deal.